All right, what's up? This is Michael Rapaport discussing two of my favorite movies and a lot of people's favorite movies, Rocky versus Raging Bull. Have you seen both of these movies? Which one do you think is better, Rocky or Raging Bull? Somebody asked me this question about these two films because I talk about them often, and it's like picking a favorite child, a favorite pet. Obviously, the similarities, both boxing films, both starring Italian Americans, both iconic films, both award-winning films, both films that people have seen over and over, at least I know I have seen over and over. Both films that have inspired filmmakers, inspired real people. I mean, Rocky to this day is one of the, when it goes to, the Mamba mentality. I mean, Rocky, the music. Raging Bull, I don't think is as inspiring in a human way, but as a film and how it inspired filmmaking and acting, I'll break it down. But I'll start with Rocky, which came out in 1976, which I saw in the movie theaters. My sister took me to go see Rocky, which wasn't inappropriate. She also took me to go see Raging Bull, which came out in 1980, and I was 10 at the time, which is totally inappropriate, but thank God for an older sister and just a different time where you can go see horror films, you could go see R-rated films as a kid and not get child services called on you. But I saw Rocky in 1976, and it changed my entire life. And it didn't change my life because I wanted to be an actor. It changed my life because I wanted to become Rocky, like a lot of people. When this film came out, obviously I didn't understand all of the context, all of the storyline of it. But the thing that I did understand as a 6-year-old seeing Rocky is the emotion of it. I understood his emotion. I understood Adrian's emotion, played by the great Talia Shire. I understood Burt Young, Paulie, his emotion, his frustration. That film and what it articulated will last forever. This underdog, this person, first of all, the film itself, Rocky's story, Sylvester Stallone's story, the way it got made. Sylvester Stallone at the time was a nowhere, nobody, nothing actor who had done some parts, a few parts on TV shows. He had been in The Lords of Flatbush, which was not a very successful movie. He was nobody. He had done nothing. He'd done a soft porn film. In the soft porn film, he played a character named the Italian Stallion, which is obviously what Rocky, the character Rocky called himself. But he was nowhere. He wrote this script, tried to get it made, and insisted that he plays the part. And they were like, who the fuck are you? It's a great script, but who the fuck are you? We want Ryan O'Neal. We want Warren Beatty. We want James Caan. We want Burt Reynolds. All these people were suggested to play Rocky. And Sylvester Stallone said, I'm playing Rocky, or you're not taking the script. He knew there was something about him knowing that this was his shot. Just like Rocky, the character, and he wrote about it. The Rocky character, he knew that was his shot. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. The opportunity to show that although I've been a bum, which is what he called himself, although I haven't made anything of myself, although I'm working for the mafia. Rocky worked for the mafia. Gazzo is a loan shark. He's a small-time mafia guy. And Rocky Balboa is a thumb breaker working for the mafia, collecting money, fighting in like a church boxing, church fights. And then we all saw the film Apollo Creed, played by the great Carl Weathers, who's obviously inspired by Muhammad Ali, colorful, shit-talking, brash, in-your-face, charismatic. He's going to fight one guy the guy drops out. He wants to fight somebody for New Year's Eve, 1976, bicentennial year, 1976. He picks a guy out of a catalog of fighters named the Italian Stallion. And he says, Apollo Creed versus the Italian Stallion. And Rocky's like, you want to fight me? Why the fuck would you want to fight me? I'm not even in your league. I want to fight you. I'm going to give you the shot of a lifetime. And the rest is history. And the film itself, went on to spawn Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and now there's Apollo. But the film Rocky, obviously what makes it great is the performance by Sylvester Stallone. The performance by Sylvester Stallone, the underdog, the fact that he's nowhere in his life. He's, 30, 31 years old. Everybody around him, Mickey in the gym is telling him, you could have been this, but you wind up doing this. Even the mob guy is telling him, you're not even breaking legs the way I told you to break the guy's thumb. Do it right. Do something with your fucking self. The thing that resonated with the world, and the film went on to win Best Picture. A guy who was nowhere starred in a film that went on to win Best Picture in the Academy Awards when the Academy Awards meant something. Is the underdog quality, is the how can I turn my life around? How can I take this one opportunity and show that I'm not just another bum from the neighborhood? Because that's what Rocky wanted to prove. I'm not just another bum from the neighborhood. And that speech that he gives Adrian the night before the fight, and he says, if I could just stay in the ring with him, if I could just stay in this fight and not quit, and I could go 15 rounds with this guy, I'll know I'm not just another bum from the neighborhood. I don't want to win. I know I'm not going to beat the guy. He's the greatest fighter of all time. But if I could stay in there and know, and that resonates, particularly with men. We understand that feeling of doubt, that feeling of we're not worthy, we're not good, we haven't lived up to our expectations, our father's expectations, life expectations. We haven't taken any opportunities and done shit with them. And now you got this one opportunity to turn your entire life around. And obviously he does it. He goes to 15 rounds. It's an emotional film. And it's not just the performance of Sylvester Stallone, which goes without saying, inspired me. The performance is top to bottom ridiculous. Burgess Meredith as Mickey, fucking excellent. So emotional, so ornery, so cranky, so likable, so lovable, so sweet. Rocky's, that motivate the Rocky speeches from Mickey. There's times where I'll put that shit on YouTube and I'll just listen to that shit over and over and over, from Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3. Of course, he dies in Rocky 3, but he comes back in Rocky 5. Get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you. The fact that Sylvester Stallone wrote this is fucking genius. This came out of his imagination. John Avildsen, who went on to direct The Karate Kid, he wasn't some big director. Rocky was a little tiny independent film that went on to win Best Picture and just became a worldwide phenomenon, literally. And one of the things that gets overlooked when talking about Rocky, because it's easy to talk about the bells and whistles of the music by Bill Conti, the Gonna Fly Now, is the cinematography. The cinematography in Rocky, it's beautifully shot. It's simply shot. They create the loneliness, the isolation, the lighting. When you're in Rocky's apartment, you feel his emotions. You capture his emotions when he's looking at the picture of himself in the mirror and he's looking at himself and there's no sound and you hear Kool and the Gang. Summer Madness is in Rocky, which is in on the soundtrack. I don't know why, but Summer Madness by Kool and the Gang. Rocky had good taste in music. But the emotion that's captured in every frame of that film, the cinematography, is just, it's just perfection. It's literal perfection. And whether you know it or not, that's one of the first films. Actually, it is the first film to use a steady camera. They created the Steadicam for the running scenes. They didn't want the running scenes to be shot on a van. They didn't want the running scenes to be bumpy. And of course, when he's going up the stairs, they wanted to create something that had a smoother look to it when he's running up the stairs for the iconic run up the Philadelphia Museum steps. The editing, the cinematography, the music, the score, the performances. There's nothing better than Rocky. You can't say anything is better than Rocky. It's a perfect movie. There's other films that you could like more than Rocky, but you can't achieve any level of greater than Rocky. It hits every single box, every single category to the T. It's a perfect film. So to have to decide which is better, Raging Bull or Rocky, again, which film do you think is better? Which film would you want to watch over and over and over again? If you had to be locked in a room for 7 days, would you pick Raging Bull or would you pick Rocky? It's a tough choice because Raging Bull, when I go into Raging Bull, this is not an easy film to watch. Rocky is love, sweetness, and heart. Raging Bull is pure dysfunction. It's funny at times, darkly funny. They intended and they knew it was going to be darkly funny, but it's pure. You do not want to wind up like Jake LaMotta. You want to wind up like Rocky. You don't want to wind up fighting Sugar Ray Robertson in Madison Square Garden, letting him punch you in the face because you hate yourself so much, which is inevitably what Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull did. Stood there against the ropes and let the guy punch him in the fucking face because he was such a piece of shit, and he knew he was such a piece of shit. He knew he was abusive. He knew that he was not a good person. So he's sort of like, for his sins, he was, repenting for his sins by letting the real life Sugar Ray Robinson punch him in this face in Madison Square Garden until there was blood on the ropes. But when I talk about Raging Bull, you talk about cinematic perfection, game-changing perfection. From the opening credits, when you see the slow motion of Robert De Niro dancing around with the classical music, the Italian classical music playing, and they're doing the credits. And Robert De Niro, his performance in Raging Bull is literally like the dunk. It's like if you equate basketball and you talk about dunking, there's before Raging Bull and after Raging Bull. There's before dunking and after dunking. Robert De Niro's performance is legendary. He put on the real weight. He trained for a year, 2 years as a real boxer. He looked like a boxer. He moved like a boxer. But the fact that they shot the film in 2 parts, which you can never do now again. Also, Raging Bull didn't have a big budget. Raging Bull was a small budget film. When you talk about method acting, Raging Bull, Robert De Niro, method acting, everybody. You ask Daniel Day-Lewis, Denzel Washington, Sean Penn, Al Pacino, Benicio del Toro, Christian Bale, any of the greats, they will all say Raging Bull. But that's the first thing. Which is a better performance? I will never say which is a better performance. It's impossible. They're both at the peak of acting. But if I had to, and I hate doing it, if I had to do it, because of the method acting, because of the putting on the weight, if I had to pick, which is not necessarily the better performance, which is the most influential, game-changing performance, it has to be Robert De Niro in Raging Bull. I hate to say it. No disrespect to you, Rocky Balboa, to you, the Italian Stallion, but I have to say it. Secondly, the filmmaking. The cinematography, the black and white cinematography in Raging Bull, again, game-changing. Every frame, every shot, every part of the film is ridiculous. Martin Scorsese, where he was at in his life, in my opinion, the dysfunction that's articulated is not just inspired by the book, because there was a book called Raging Bull that Jake LaMotta wrote. It was inspired by what was going on in Martin Scorsese's life. There was something going on in his life that he was able to articulate when he directed Raging Bull. And Robert De Niro knew it. It was the emotions. He understood the emotions, the jealousy, the dysfunction. And he was able to articulate it through these characters in Raging Bull. And every single shot of that film, I still can't understand how they did the boxing scenes. In Rocky, you're outside of the ring for the most part. In Raging Bull, you're inside of the ring. You're moving along with the characters. Both work for what they were trying to do, but the violence and the self-destructiveness and the sort of grit. Again, I hate to say this, but if you talk about the cinematography of the fight scenes alone, Raging Bull's groundbreaking. If you look at Paul Thomas Anderson, Boogie Nights, these one-take shots, there's a scene in Raging Bull where he's going from the locker room out to the ring, and it's not CGI. They filled up that auditorium with however many people, and they follow him into the ring. This shit has been stolen. The flash bulbs, when he's in the ring, stolen over and over and over. Boogie Nights, they do it in Boogie Nights. Paul Thomas Anderson, he'll tell you, go watch Raging Bull. The end scene of Raging Bull, where Jake LaMotta, fat Robert De Niro, is talking to the mirror, and he goes, "Although I'm no Olivier, you much rather hear me say this bull ain't the ring, it's a play." Blah, 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 blah. And he's boxing, getting ready to go on stage because now he's working as like a poet. If you look at the last scene of Boogie Nights, when Mark Wahlberg is in the dressing room getting ready to do the porno, it's shot the same way, frame for frame. They've literally stolen from Raging Bull. I don't call it stolen because it's a homage. But if you watch Boogie Nights and you watch the flash bulbs, if you watch the cinematography, it's straight up taken from Raging Bull. Some might say it's from Goodfellas. Goodfellas set it off from Raging Bull. Raging Bull was a game-changing cinematography film. So as gorgeous as the cinematography, the loneliness, the beauty, the isolation is in Rocky. And they did create the Steadicam. The cinematography in Raging Bull, in my opinion, and again, I hate saying this, the cinematography in Raging Bull is more of a game changer than the cinematography in Rocky. Both are Academy Award winning, highest of the high level, museum quality, Guggenheim museum level cinematic feats. But Raging Bull, they did shit that had never been done before, period. And like I said, I've watched those scenes in the boxing ring over and over and over and over again. I still can't tell you what the fuck is going on. Performances, again, Kathy Moriarty plays Vicky, wife, discovered her. She had never acted before. Raging Bull, the discovery of Joe Pesci. It's his first legitimate film. He had done a B film where he played a gangster. I mean, the same thing. The performance is top to bottom. The bit players in Raging Bull, the extras in Raging Bull, they're perfectly cast, just the same way they're cast in Rocky. It's a perfect film. It's 3 hours. The crazy thing about Raging Bull is that it lost to Ordinary People in the 1980 Academy Awards. It lost to Ordinary People, which was directed by Robert Redford. Goodfellas, 1990, lost to Kevin Costner, Dances with Wolves. 1980, at the end of the 1980s, they did the best film of the 80s. Raging Bull won. 1990, Goodfellas come out, lost the best picture. At the end of the 90s, they said the best film of the 90s, Goodfellas. Both films did not win best picture. Goodfellas or Raging Bull. So the question is Rocky versus Raging Bull. I mean, I could go on and on. John Turturro's an extra in Raging Bull. The actor who originally played, what the fuck is his name? The actor who originally played the coach on Cheers was discovered and plays the mob boss. He was replaced by Woody Harrelson. So without Raging Bull, there's no coach on Cheers. Without coach on Cheers passing away, who knows? Maybe there's no Woody Harrelson. What film do you think is better? Raging Bull versus Rocky. Can you pick one? I'm going to be totally honest. If I have to say what film is more influential, cinematically, what's more influential to filmmakers? What's more influential to me as an actor? It's unfortunate I have to say Raging Bull, but I would never say anything disparaging about Rocky. Which film do you think is more important? What performance do you think is better? You can't pick one. It's hard to pick one. Who would you pick? But I think they're both incredible films. They're both so influential. But if I had to say one that I think is a better film, just because I think cinematically and acting wise, as an achievement, as a flag in the ground, as a pole in the ground, I have to say the filmmaking top to bottom of Raging Bull is more unique, more groundbreaking, and inspired more filmmaking and inspired directors more than Rocky. The editing, Thelma Schumacher, Martin Scorsese, that combination, she's edited all his films. I have to say Raging Bull. But again, I want to know which film you guys think is more important, which film you think is better, Rocky or Raging Bull. Let me know, leave a comment.